And I must say that since inception in 2002, at the time of the audit, the program was actually implemented to about 1 million farmers, and at that time there were no farmers that had actually been weaned off. And what I was noticed is that the ministry actually lacked strategies. The first one, looking at the ZIAMIS, the automated ZIAMIS function, the ministry did not put in place any automated way of deactivating farmers who had actually reached 3 years of the program. So as it is the initial stages of the FISP program, it was supposed to have farmers that would be on the program for 3 years. Then thereafter, in the second year, they were supposed to receive 25% or less of their inputs. So in the second year, as opposed to having 100% of the inputs, would only get 75%. In the third year, they'll get 50% of their inputs, and they'll further be graduated after 3 years. But nevertheless, the audit did show that there were no farmers that were actually weaned off. And I had mentioned there's nothing that has actually been written with regards to the weaning off of farmers other than the original plan that was there. And looking at the statistics of the number of farmers that were actually targeted during the audit, it actually shows that about 14% of the farmers have actually been on that program for more than 4 years, whereas only 38% have been there for less than 3 years. So other than that, we can actually say that there's no mechanism with regards to the weaning off of farmers with regards to this program. Then the third aspect is to what extent has the ministry ensured timely, efficient, as well as adequate supply of agricultural inputs to target the small-scale farmers. So with regards to the 2020 to 2021 FISP manual, it actually states that the farm inputs have to be implemented in an efficient manner. But however, the audit did show some imbalances with regards to the allocation of inputs. And as it is, the FISP program actually looks at 2 ways of distributing inputs. That's through the e-voucher as well as the direct input support program. So for the e-voucher, farmers actually have a voucher which they can actually go to agro dealers and redeem their vouchers, whereas for the direct input support program, they're actually given some bags of fertilizer as well as some seed. So as it is for the e-voucher, the value under the 2020-2021 farming season, it actually showed that the farmers under the FISP were actually given 2,100 kwacha, whereas those under the direct input supply were given 50 kg bags of fertilizer as well as 1 10 kg bag of fertilizer. And at the time of this farming season, fertilizer was at 650 kwacha, whereas the bag of seed was at 360 kwacha. So when you do the calculation, it actually shows that the farmers that were on the direct input support program were actually benefiting from the program with a total of inputs amounting to 4,260, which shows a difference of 2,160. So with regards to this, we actually saw those farmers were actually shunning from the e-voucher program and will actually opt to be on the direct input support program. Then with other functions with regards to the efficiency is that they are what we call as agroecological regions, and with this, the purpose, which is the provincial agricultural coordinating officers are supposed to submit or make a submission with regards to the adequate seed as well as fertilizer that is needed. But regardless of this, we'd actually see that the people under the direct input support program, the distribution of inputs was done informally. So even those that had to receive early maturing variety and those had to receive late maturing variety will be given the inputs at the same time, which also depicts the whole process of having agroecological regions. So this also tends to reduce productivity. Then it also has been noted that since the inception of the Farmers Input Support Program, there hasn't been any impact evaluation assessment that has been done. So it's quite difficult to even assess how much, how the benefits of the program, as well as if it's actually meeting the intended purpose of increasing productivity as well as food security. Then also the issue of warehouses has actually been a challenge. As you can see, most of the security in these warehouses were inadequate, which resulted into theft. And this actually resulted in some farmers not receiving the inputs, others receiving the inputs at a later stage, or maybe others just receiving less than what is actually needed for them to receive. Then moving on to the extent, to what extent does the Ministry of Agriculture facilitate the process of farmer organization, monitoring and evaluation sensitization? So we have seen that those challenges with regards to the 3 areas that the audit sought to see. With the first one, which is facilitation of farmer organizations, we did note to say that there were infrequent meetings as well as communication gaps, which actually hindered timely exchange of information. Then there was also poor communication channels between the camp agriculture committees and the Ministry of Agriculture. With regards to monitoring and evaluation, there is an absence of a proper M&D framework. This actually also makes it difficult for the Ministry of Agriculture to actually assess the impact of the Farmer Input Support Program. Then with regards to sensitization, we do note that the Ministry of Agriculture has been making some efforts with regards to sensitizing the farmers, but there have been mixed levels of knowledge about diversification amongst the farmers, and we also see that other farmers who are not aware of insurance cover and some who are not even aware of the weather index insurance scheme, and so this actually is some of the challenges with regards to those three areas. Coming to the extent that the Ministry of Agriculture has ensured the expansion of markets for private sector input suppliers and agro-dealers. So the shortfalls of this is that mainly the participation of private sector participation with regards to the FISP program is through the e-voucher program. And we had noted that there were some challenges with regards to this. One results to the supply shortfalls. For instance, there was a company that failed to meet the contracted quality of fertilizer for the 2020-2021 farming season. Then there were also delays in payments to suppliers, which also caused the distribution of inputs to be less. Then there are also challenges with regards to the agro-dealer participation. We saw that there was limited participation by agro-dealers, causing farmers to travel to neighboring districts. And this is specific for the e-voucher, the farmers who are under the e-voucher. Then again, we also saw that there were unpaid invoices for agro-dealers, and this actually resulted in reduction in supply of inputs. Then coming to the extent to which FISP promoted the agriculture diversification. So then one of the key objectives of FISP is to promote agriculture diversification, but we did note that there were challenges with regards to this. The first, looking at input preference. So the audit actually noted that farmers tend to exchange their vouchers, particularly those on the e-voucher system, as they have a larger variety compared to those on direct input support system. But regardless to this, the farmers would actually exchange the e-vouchers for fertilizer as well as maize seed, and will actually forgo other varieties such as rice, sorghum, as well as groundnuts. Then also in terms of input distribution, we have noted from the audit that there are certain farmers who tend to share inputs, and so as a result of sharing these inputs, most of them would actually tend to actually go for fertilizer and seed and maize, because those are of common ground by the farmers as opposed to other diversified selection. Then also in terms of allocation of inputs according to agroecological regions, we did note that this wasn't done in as much as the PACOs would actually submit agroecological regions. We still noted that farmers did not receive the input package that was suitable for their specific regions, and this also hampered diversification as well as productivity. Then there's also lack of diversification evidence. As I've mentioned, there isn't any M&D system that has been put in place, and so there isn't information with regards to how much has been diversified and what extent the farmers actually diversify. And so moving on to what extent has the Ministry of Agriculture put in place effective measures to ensure risk-sharing mechanisms. So with regards to this, the Ministry of Agriculture has taken steps to address the potential risk faced by smallholder farmers due to adverse weather conditions, and one of these is partnering with two insurance companies, which is Mayfair Insurance as well as the Zambia State Insurance Corporation. So the way this insurance works is that farmers contribute 100 kwacha of the 400 kwacha towards the insurance, and the payouts are actually remitted to Ministry of Agriculture, which then disperse payments to registered agro-dealers. But as it is, there were some challenges with regards to this, as the audit actually saw that there was limitation within the risk-sharing mechanism that was there. Then the audit findings also revealed that accuracy of triggers for insurance payout faced issues such as inadequate validation of information, as well as information that was provided by insurance companies was not accurate. So those were some of the challenges with regards to that, but nevertheless, the Ministry of Agriculture have put in place, aimed to put in place effective measures to help small-scale farmers to recover their investments. But despite all these measures that were put in by the farmers, you'd actually see that the two insurance companies also had some challenges. For instance, the Mayfair insurance coverage was limited to germination failure, whilst this would include germination, crop failure, as well as loss to animals. But as it is, agriculture is a very climate, it's actually quite vulnerable to climate change, so that certain covers that are not actually being covered by the insurance companies, it's actually quite limited. Then as PMRC also thought it is also important to just look at lessons learned from best practices. We drew lessons from Tanzania, Ghana, as well as Brazil. And what we actually saw was that in Tanzania, they actually use a localized approach. So they actually use local information. So farmers, they rely on agroecological conditions. So farmers are given the inputs based on those. So there are things, the distribution is actually localized to each location. So it's location specific, as we do know that there's a criteria for farmers that are within this, but we also know that there's some farmers who are benefiting who are not supposed to be on this program.
So we realized that one of the recommendations that the Auditor General's report gave was that of there's no clear policy to graduate farmers from the program, and this is quite important. At the same time, the Ministry of Agriculture should discourage the sharing of farmer input packs to ensure that the beneficiaries get to maximize the input before being weaned off. PMRC's recommendation is that FISP beneficiaries should be made to operate in zoned areas, or rather farm blocks, that will make it easier for monitoring and tracking of beneficiaries to be weaned off from the program. Government should actually expedite in terms of investments in the agricultural sector, particularly investing in all the 10 farming blocks to ensure that the e-voucher is reintroduced as a means of implementing FISP to give farmers a freedom of choice to their input and promote crop diversification, or just agriculture diversification. Further, the Ministry of Agriculture should also harmonize the value of inputs for all FISP beneficiaries to ensure that they are all accorded the same benefits. So I think prior to this, our recommendation to this aspect is that government should ensure that all financial institutions are integrated into the ZIAMIS system, the Zambia Integrated Agriculture Management System platform, to ensure that data harmonization is achieved. Government should also ensure that the participating financial institution decentralize the e-voucher related services to improve problem solving and response time. Generally, there was a delayed response to program queries by participating financial institutions because of lack of decentralization. Then the other aspect is also to do with which the Auditor General's Office found as a recommendation, that the agroecological features of different regions in the country should inform the distribution of farmer packs so as to ensure the appropriate seeds varieties are actually distributed to appropriate regions. Our recommendation is that government should invest in research and development that seeks to develop location-specific fertilizer and seed, particularly in this moment when we have seen that climate change has come to stay. It is important that we develop innovations, particularly seed varieties and fertilizer recommendations that speaks to the different agroecologies. Then the AG's recommendation, one of it was a monitoring and evaluation framework is put in place to enable assessment in the implementation of FISP to be conducted to enable timely decision making. The M&E framework will enable continuous reviews of the program for the purposes of addressing implementation challenges that may be identified to improve program, and a way of assessing the impact of the program on its beneficiaries. For us as PMRC, we also see that the Ministry of Agriculture should ensure that the monitoring and evaluation of FISP should be an ongoing process and not something that is done at one point of an event. And this should also involve all relevant stakeholders, including program beneficiaries. Additionally, Ministry of Agriculture should use appropriate methods and tools for data collection and analysis, and to ensure that the data is accurate, reliable, and valid. The other aspect also was a recommendation from AG's office was that investment in warehousing infrastructure are made across the country to avoid incurring warehousing costs, because ultimately this basically intends to add a cost to the program. Our recommendation also is that government should venture into public-private partnerships in order to reduce the cost of building warehouses in the event of the current state we are in terms of our physical stress. The other aspect also is, which was recommended by AG, was that agricultural inputs distributed to farmers should meet the Ministry of Agriculture technical specifications and quality standards by issuing certificates to agro dealers to ensure that good quality fertilizer and seeds are distributed to the farmers. So through the Zambia Agricultural Research Institute, stringent measures are put in place to implement quality control for both seed and fertilizer before distribution to the beneficiaries. And so that in terms of seed, the Seed Control Certification Institute should be a paramount institution to look at that aspect. Our recommendation is that there is need for extension officers to sensitize farmers on counterfeit seeds and the need to report any agro dealers that distribute uncertified seed. To this aspect, it is important that we recommend that the Ministry of Agriculture do fund the Seed Control and Certification Institute adequately to be able to conduct activities related to counterfeit seed campaigns. The other aspect also is the sensitization on insurance cover and package offered and crop diversification to FISP beneficiaries and CEOs is conducted. This was an AG's recommendation. Our recommendation also is in line that the Ministry of Agriculture, in partnership with insurance companies through the Insurance Association of Zambia, should increase sensitization on the importance of insurance cover. The other aspect also is, in terms of recommendation by AG, is that mechanisms are put in place to monitor the use of inputs by beneficiaries to avoid abuse of agricultural input. And this is very true. Sometimes the beneficiaries have ended up selling these agricultural inputs to other people in exchange for money. Our recommendation is that FISP beneficiaries should be made to operate in farm blocks or zoned areas, which will make it easier to monitor the use of inputs by the beneficiaries. The other aspect also is that computed payouts amounts are made directly to affected farmers by the insurance companies or providers to enable the farmers redeem payouts in their own way. Our recommendation also is that Ministry of Agriculture should sign MOUs with insurance companies, which will stipulate the need for them to provide payouts directly to the affected farmers. There are quite many, some of them I'll jump. We also realize that one of the AG's recommendations is that the farmer targeting process is made more stringent to ensure that the intended beneficiaries are on the program. Names of beneficiaries under the program should be printed and displayed in public prior to the distribution of inputs to enable farmers identify any irregularities. In addition, the FISP farmer register on ZIAMIS is linked to the National Registration Office to validate the beneficiaries. Our recommendation is that there is need for an intensive data cleaning to curb the duplication of NRCs. There is also need for continuous validation to reduce on the ghost beneficiaries. There is also need for the digitalization of the selection process in order to deal with dishonest individuals who would want to be on the same scheme whilst being employed in the civil service or any other public institutions. The other aspect is that investments are enhanced in national weather services infrastructure such as satellite, capacity building of staff so as to increase accuracy in the way the satellite capture data on weather index and enable staff to interpret and verify information from insurance companies on triggers. Our recommendation is that there is need for the development and implementation of plans for system enhancement, technology improvement, professional training which will guide the investments of national weather services and infrastructure, particularly for that under the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. The other aspect also is in conjunction with the Meteorological Department, research is done on how best weather index can detect whether...
Is it possible that you can...
I'm almost winding up. I'm remaining one sentence. Yeah. That are affected at both germination and area. So our recommendation is that there is need to increase funding towards research and development. The last aspect is that, which the AG's office actually provided, was a review of the insurance policy on FISP should be undertaken to ensure that the insurance provides cover for both pre and post-harvest floods, armyworms attack, and also payouts amounts to farmers are realistic and able to empower farmers during their loss. Our recommendation is that relevant stakeholders should be engaged to ensure all comments and concerns are incorporated within the revised policy.
Thank you very much. We have given you just...
Chair, sorry, not a question and such, but I want to acknowledge that I think you did put in a lot of work. You could tell that though you are being rushed, you still say things that, will I be right if I were to say when the Minister of Agriculture comes, we should tell them they are not doing much, they've been sleeping?
Yes,
I think we've got to be factual. I think we should have expected that a lot would have been done from the time the program has been evolving over time. So certainly a lot has to be done from our